Oh, wow.
Saw it twice, so I was like, oh my god.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up,
Yeah.
like a headlight, but there was nobody there.
Oh, it's just disappeared.
Hello everybody, welcome to Truth Proof Sunday night. Hope everybody's had a good weekend. I've had a half decent one, so I'm not complaining. Jane Louise, happy birthday, Paul. Yeah, my birthday today, and yeah, it's been okay. Thanks for all birthday wishes from everybody and gifts from my girls and other people, so really appreciated. And yeah, let's just get on with it. I don't know what I'm talking about really tonight, but do I ever know what I'm talking about? So it's a bit different to Thursday night when we had Reed Summers on, and the guy can just he can talk. Let's put it that way. But I enjoyed listening to him. John Blatt in here as well. Good to see you, John. So questions led tonight, if possible. But you know, there's a few things that we will cover. Obviously. Oh, do you like that, Noah? It had to be, didn't it? That's come from Noah. So yeah, he's just coming through wall there. So thank you for that. Yeah, we talked other week about the visitation. Well, other week we've talked about it probably for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember the date that it happened when that light interacted with us. And we were up there again on Friday. And can everybody hear me okay? I think so. We were up there again on Friday, and there were me, Linny, Pete, Michael had come up, Jack had come up. There were 7 of us, and someone else came, but they left, and we got the visitation again. You know, literally when we least expected it. But isn't that the case? I don't think it was as spectacular. I mean, Linny can be judge of that. I know he's in chat. Pete's probably in chat. And Chris Mack were there as well. It definitely weren't as spectacular, but it were independent. We knew it were nothing that any of us had done. So there's something happening as we left on way back. Somebody said, well, it's still interested, isn't it? Well, it is. I think it's forever interested. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, because I have probably touched on it for the last 2 or 3 live streams, a sphere of light interacted with us a few weeks ago, and literally size of an apple. And literally independent, not a beam coming from anywhere. It just interacted with us. Well, we got it again, slightly different, but we think it was the same light. I don't know, there was speed it were going and that made it appear the way it appeared, but we got it again on Friday night. Somebody help me if you're in chat. I think it were about 9:30, and another guy had come up onto cliff tops. He comes with his little dog. He usually has a natter with. Sometimes he'll stop 5 minutes, sometimes he'll stop an hour or so, and then he just wanders off into darkness, says goodbye as he's going the other way. And that's what happened. He weren't with us, and he came back after his nightly walk, had a natter to us, and we're just leaving. And so he missed it. I think he probably missed it by 2 minutes, which were a shame. But what were interesting was if he'd have been there, it would have been 8 people. And the first time we had this visit from this light, there was 7 of us, and all 7 of us experienced it. All 7 of us saw it. On this night there was 7 again, and we all saw it by 1. I think it was just Michael that didn't see it, not because he just probably looking in another direction. So I hope I'm not boring you guys with this visitation of this light. It's just that we found it fascinating because you're not looking at something that's up in heavens. If that's not good enough, when you see these strange orbs or 30 feet away, it's like actually with you, which is fascinating and absolutely incredible. And that's all we needed. We'd been stood there in dark and cold for hours, and literally, I don't know what it would have taken, probably 2 seconds at that. It literally flew in a straight line between Pete and Chris, and I saw it come, just white light. Didn't light them up, but just there. But interestingly, we all erupted, the six of us. Michael didn't see it, what we'd seen. Yeah, I think it was Ian, who's in chat now, and maybe Pete and Chris Mack. They said it came down. I saw it go across. How does that work? Were they two? I don't know. But it was fascinating, and it's really giving us the incentive. Not that we wouldn't be up there, but it really gives you the incentive to do more and spend more time in affected area. So let's just have a look. I can only see a limited number of people here on this little screen that I'm looking at, but there's Scooby-Doo, Tony Worrell, Dizzy Dawns. I know Linny's in, Mrs. Linny, Mia Girl. Let's have a look. Margaret Webster, Blue Shift, Rob, Jonathan Chapman, Jane Louise is in. There's going to be people, I know there's people I've missed because we've been going up for 250 people. Jonathan Chapman, let's have a look. Ian. And and Lee's doing moderating. Gemma can't make it tonight, and I don't know if Alison's doing it because I know she's been busy. But Lee will keep it in check. There were a bit of bickering in moderating on Thursday, so hopefully it's going to be all right tonight. Luby Lisa, because if it isn't, and I see it, I'll ban them. So seriously, and Lee, just do it. We're not here for that. Nobody's here for any kind of abuse, so we're not going to have it. Doc Martin's in. Let's have a look. And Susan Wiseman. So where we're going? Yeah, spoke to Martin today, interestingly. And we've been talking about the strange sounds that people have been hearing whilst on the phone to me. Most of the time, I'm not hearing them. And just out of blue, we'd had a conversation 10 minutes. And he said, "Can you hear that?" I couldn't hear anything, and I'm not going to try and make the noise because it were at his end and he could hear it, but he said there was a strange groaning, stroke moaning sound during our phone conversation, which I never heard, but we're getting that quite a lot. Linny's had it, when I've been talking to Ian. Pete's had it. Pete's actually had voices where it said ignore him. So I don't know whether that one, my wife, could have been, because she probably would say ignore him. But there you go. And all interesting, And let's have a look. I don't think we've any questions so far. I've got a great story that Paul, right, let's have a look at this from Ian. Paul, we were in a circle. Jack missed it. Right, okay. And Jack missed it. He was having right, okay. And Michael was looking up. So, so 5 of us saw it. So Jack wasn't present. Yeah, must have been present, wasn't it? So were the 6 in circle then, Linny? Fair enough. So, but 5 of us saw it then, and there's no doubt in our minds about what we saw. I've just got a doubt that because I only thought one of us didn't see it, but there you go. That's where it's great, and just having all these eyes on these things. So thanks for that, Ian. That's brilliant. I'll just scroll up a little bit because I've got this story that I want to share with you, which I've been wanting to share for about 3 weeks. And it's fascinating. Let's just do this one, though. Fortean, were you on the same platform as the last time, Paul, when you had the second interaction? Same weather conditions? The first time, Fortean, I think there was a storm out at sea, probably 20 miles out. This time, same platform, very similar position, similar location, similar formation as well. But I don't know whether weather conditions same. I don't know what Ian thinks, but no, I don't think they probably were. But I don't think that matters really, 14. It's a good question, and you make a good point. It was night time, obviously, and we're not expecting it, and there it was, bang! It just came in. What I find fascinating is I saw it go straight through there, so it come down. But not to worry, it's just how it is, isn't it? Let's just do this. Dragonborn, let's have a look. If you could pass on some good advice to someone starting out, what would it be? As regard, take it your meaning as regards looking into the unexplained. Be true to yourself. And that way, it's like anything, I think, in life. And I'm not I'm going to call myself an old sage. I'm 63. I suppose I am. But what I'm meaning is, whatever you do, and Linny will know what I mean by this. I've said his name a few times tonight, but we're joinery. If you set off right, it usually finishes right. Do you know what I mean? And so if you set off slightly out of level with something, then you're struggling all the way through job. If you set off being dishonest or untruthful to yourself, and you want something so bad to be unexplained phenomena that you're willing to bend truth a little bit, then you know that's the path that you're going to follow. There's loads and loads of times we see things up there, or people write to me, and by the time we've kicked it about between me and the witness, because I always say witnesses, not just key, they're better placed than anybody. You know, you get your experts out there, or we're going to tell you what it is, but they weren't there. The witness was, and so they're better placed. But sometimes after you've sort of knocked things about with witness and sort of gone through everything, you can find a perfectly plausible explanation. Don't try and look for unexplained until you've ironed out all others. Maybe, you know, I mean, everybody's got different methods and different ways of going about things, haven't they? But it's just, that's what I would do. To just try and be true to yourself. And if you talk about something and you later find out that it were actually explainable, just put your hand up and say it. You're not breaking no rules, are you? That's the basics of anything, isn't it? Knocked a cup over just before I started live stream on Thursday. Everything went a bit pear-shaped. But let's just have a look. And now we're going to do this story, weren't I? Karen Berman. Did you feel anything or any effects after the light showed it so? Thanks, Karen. I think I can speak for everybody here. Well, that were there. It's great. The first time, it were incredible. It were proper elation, because we you know, we've been up there many times and felt a little bit of oppression and a little bit of sinisterness about it. It's got a dark undertone running through it, and you know at night feels off, even if nothing happens. But this light just made everybody feel happy, even emotional. Isn't that a weird thing to say? But it really did. So, yeah, we did feel that. But there were no change in atmosphere. There were no sound. And, it was just pretty much as I've described it. It was brilliant, but a really bright white light, once again, that didn't light everything up for the brightness of the light. It's hard to explain, isn't it? That when you can see a light, and I always jump back to the Lee Hayward light on the field, the huge orange sphere, because Lee said it looked like molten lava, but it weren't glowing around it. You know what I mean? The little bit of a glow on floor, because it must have been just off the floor, but that were it. And so it's hard. There's definitely some kind of different type of exotic science at work here, that maybe men of science and academia should really take a lot more interest in witness reports that talk about light that's not emitting or not throwing out vast volumes of light. The lights we see over the sea, when people say, you're probably looking at flares. In some instances, you're going to be looking at flares, but the whole idea of a flare is to illuminate the area around it, and there's nothing being illuminated. So, that you kind of answered your own question when you say that we might not be looking at flares in some instances. Let's have a look. Let's just do this. Any update on the story last week of the message left on the answer phone? I can't work it out, Tim. Does it state which number it was from? Do you know, if it were you that asked me that, Tim, because it's still on his answer phone, would I get that? Because I've just got a message. All I know, Tim, is that telephone conversation that I had with my relative was on a different phone to the one that it's... I've done it where the message was left. I'll speak to Chris Wright about that, because Chris works... We telephones and telecom, so he might be better placed to sort of do a bit of digging for me with that one, if he can at all. Right, I asked for these questions. I might not get to this blooming story. I wish I'd not asked now. Only kidding. Let's have a look. Right. Any news on the sighting at Stainton early last month about the van driver who witnessed the blue angel light being? No, mate. I've spent a lot of time on phone today speaking to various people, but I've not got an update on that for you. I am sorry. I've listened to some incredible accounts today, to be honest with you. I made a point of catching up on a few of these, and I'll scroll down a bit, but I just want to do this story because I've wanted to do this for a couple of weeks. So you guys just bear with me, and I've called it Baker Light. You're thinking, what's he on about, aren't you? So there's a reason, right? So it's from, I'll just say his first name, Mark, and I spoke to Mark today. I just wanted, I'd already written this up, but I wanted to speak to him again today because there's more. There'll be an update on this. I found it interesting. You guys might think afterwards, well, what's he on about? It weren't that good, right? And we'll just do a little bit of a background. Hi, Paul. I've been listening to your YouTube channel whilst driving about the country. It's the first time this evening that I've been able to get onto your live stream. This has passed, remember. Right. I believe the times are changing. I'm wondering if you may have heard something similar to this experience before. Something that happened when I was nearly 12 years old in 1982. Okay, here goes. That's what he said, not me. I inherited an old 1940s radio that still worked and would spend many a fine hour turning the tuning knob in front of the radio to hear stations all over the world. Paul, what makes this different is I would occasionally hear people stroke voices call out hello in between the stations through the static. Okay, you should probably think, yeah, well, you can get that, can't you? That might be perfectly plausible. I remember how surprised their tone was when you might. I remember how surprised their tone was, like when you might call out hello in response to the noise you've heard when to see if someone answers. I only mentioned it to my mum when I started hearing my own name being called out. To someone my age, I remember how bizarre but also fascinating, even exciting it seemed to be. Of course, my mum never believed a word of it and said it would never happen with anyone else. And said, would it happen with anyone else but me present? And we tried this, but it would only happen when I was on my own. I've attached a picture. Well, he did. I haven't got that to show you tonight. I've attached a picture of what I remember this radio looked like. I really wish I could remember the make of it. I do remember the electric cord wrapped in a soft material with the live and earth wire entwined around each other. The plug, however, would have been a modern hard plastic replacement. Bear with us because it's interesting, this story, honestly. Here's what I find interesting as the memory, though. The heat produced after being on for a while would produce a distinctive smell. When I concentrate now, I can still get a strong sense of that smell. Let's keep going, people. Don't run out on me. Like sitting in an old car that hasn't been opened in an age. And I think we can probably go there, can't we? We can sense that. Hopefully it makes sense to you. I hope it makes sense to you guys. Imagine the dust of 40 years build-up interacting with the heat of the valves and the warmth rising through the Bakelite casing. I know I originally said that I inherited the radio. I believe it to have been my granddad's. But I have literally just finished a frustrating discussion with my family, with a family member who insists it never was, and they seem very unclear as to where it came from or how I came to get it. But do confirm they remember it being in my room. Strangely, I have no recollection of it how it got there. So that's interesting. I've asked family members about it recently, but neither can pinpoint who or where the radio came from or who owned it. I guess it didn't mean that much to anyone other than myself, to be certain. I've even questioned myself as to its origin many, many times. We'll get to it, people. Bear with me. All right. I just can't come up with another answer or reason as to why I would even have it. So if I say I don't know, then that's the best answer I can give. What do I know for a fact? That no one on earth can ever change my mind about what I felt, and I felt a love and possession for it. We didn't have much as kids. It was the early 80s in Britain. We were a very low-income family, walking trips 2 miles away to Co-op, and they closed to go through 2 miles to Co-op after they closed to go through the bins to go out-of-date food that they used to throw away. Wow. Interesting, honest, he's laying it out as it was, and people think they're on hard times now, don't they? And he's saying it how it is, isn't he? Right. Those days I remember frequently. There was no shame or embarrassment in doing it. It seemed quite normal. Anyway, I learned from an early age that music would become very important to me, But that's a whole different story. But this radio seemed like a lifeline, a window into so much more. I'm wondering how long it may have been. After getting the radio before I then noticed the strangeness. I wish I knew, but it wasn't straight away. Don't want to miss a page, as I get mixed up, won't I? Hold on. Are we all good? You're all right, are you? Right. As soon as I got back from school, I would rush to my room and switch it on. I'm guessing it would be take nearly a minute to warm up, which I found fascinating in itself. I remember the switch between medium wave and long wave and the tuning knob that was so sensitive. It's difficult to describe a moment in time when you recognize something isn't quite normal. It was definitely evening. I would sit at my small desk with a single lamp on, pretending to be doing my homework in case anybody walked in. We've all done that, haven't we? Still do that now. Anybody walked in. I wish I could remember the frequency, but I realized at the same time each evening I could hear a simple three-tone repeating sound. I learned from a teacher at school that it was likely to be the Sputnik 1. That's a satellite for those of you that might be a little bit younger and don't remember. But I researched and found it just emitted one single tone. And I remember it would repeat for a while before changing to something I no longer remember. Do you have any ideas what it may have been? I don't, but we're reading this out now to these people in here, Mark, and some of them might actually know what it is. And I know that Mark contacted me initially because this has puzzled him for many, many years, and it set him on path that he's on today, but he's hoping somebody else might have some answers. My point is, though, I think I would become transfixed by this. So in a way, and he's not saying this, it's almost hypnotic. It's almost like a drum beat, you know? So in my mind, when I was reading it, it seemed like it was something I had to listen to. I wish I knew now and then exactly what it was. I was an 11 going on 12-year-old boy. What would I know? Whilst moving the dial between various radio stations, the static noise would be present. I don't know if it was alarm or surprise I felt, but a female voice said hello. I wish I had the words to explain my recognition of something unusual happening, but also the voice's surprise word of hello. As I mentioned before, the voice had a tone of being very curious as to a sound she was hearing, and was calling out hello to see if there was any response. It amazed me that a single word in this context could create such an effect. Remember, I said that I was slowly tuning the dial when this voice came through. And if I stopped or tried tuning the dial back to where the voice could have been, there was nothing. Let's just keep going, people. Don't want to miss a page. It'll throw it. Bear with me. Right. I neither responded or acknowledged it that first time. If this was the first and last time this occurred, I doubt very much if I'd be writing this today, but it wasn't. It wouldn't have been the same night, but it stuck in my mind as something quirky and interesting. I don't think I told anyone about it the first time. It would happen again after. There was no set pattern of frequency or time. It was always when I was slowly moving the dial and never at the same time. And there was an obvious radio station in the background. And there was, I thought it were going to say an obvious radio station in the background broadcasting. There is always this hiss of static behind the voice. I hope it makes sense. I wish I could have taken a more scientific approach to it all, but as an 11-year-old boy, actually already low in self-confidence and self-esteem, I never recorded these events or tried to explain myself or the truth that could be behind it. The woman's voice on occasion started to say the word hello in a more accepting and welcoming way. I wouldn't respond until quite a few times after, although it was often still a surprise when it did occur. But believe you me, when I heard my name called, it took on another meaning altogether. I would reply with hello, but it would have been a quite nervous voice from me. I don't think I was scared. I would like to think I wasn't scared, but it really felt like a connection. Something was connecting with me. I did not recognize the voice. I didn't ask any questions, but I really believe someone was communicating with me through this old 1940s radio. Occasionally, I would also hear a sort of chuckle or laughter, followed by hello and my name being called, which also only would happen whilst physically turning the dial, not on any specific frequency. I've always wondered if my physical touch to the radio was part of how this was happening. Stay with it. Stay with it. I don't know, but I don't know. No one I talked to believed me or were willing to contemplate such an idea. I tried to make it happen whilst my mum was with me, as I've said, but it would never happen whilst anyone else was present. Things happened or began happening when I was 12. The most profound thing ever in my life, in addition to the most terrifying. 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Yes, I can remember that specifically. I would make sure I was awake in bed, although my eyes would be closed. That radio wouldn't be on. Same voice, remember. Radio wouldn't be on. That woman's voice would be in my head, asking me to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth in a slow, relaxing manner. I felt safe and not afraid, and I would do this as the brightness started to develop in my mind. This light would become so brilliant, a brilliant white light filling the whole of my mind. As soon as I heard the thud of air around me, the light would go off. So it's almost as though this radio prepared him for something. And I spoke to this guy, and he seems really sincere. I would hear other voices talking between themselves, saying things like, "He isn't ready yet," or "Shall we pull him now?" or "Shall we pull now?" The female voice would ask if I wanted to go with them, and without hesitation, I said yes. I was told not to resist, and I swear, Paul, I swear, I was pulled out of my body, out of my physical body. But I didn't know what I was other than I was above myself, looking at myself below in the bed. I sensed others around me. No matter which direction I turned or tried to look, I couldn't see anyone. They always seemed to be behind me, no matter how fast I thought I was moving. I didn't like the moments of being pulled out. It was ridiculous, as this may sound. It felt unnatural. But when I was out of my physical body, there was no weight or mass to myself. Nearly done. I couldn't sense what form I was, but I remember floating, and I had to learn how to control the direction of my speed. By thought. The power of the human mind, our very thoughts. This is far from the end, Paul. I've written and deleted, rewrote and deleted many things to and from this point. It's just ridiculous. The problem is I know it's true. No one can ever change or explain away the things that happened with that radio and within my mind. The timeline seems blurred. At times the specifics are burned into me. I smashed the radio up within a year. I haven't thought about it for years. I have no idea why it seems important to get this out to you, but it does. I asked Mark what happened to the radio. He's had a look. There's more to this, and we'll sort of pick up on this and do it another time, because we probably used 15 minutes. I distinctly remember being filled with rage. This is after I'd asked him what happened. I don't truthfully remember what the anger was about or where it came from. I was 12 by then, and literally it could have been about anything. I do remember deep regret and sadness for doing it, though. The timeline of it being at my granddad's doesn't actually add up. I realised he passed in 1984 and I was 11 or 12, but I managed to convince myself that it was his. But no one remembers it being given to my granddad, or him even having it. It leaves me with a strange feeling, without anything really. I don't really understand. I just don't know what to think. But it was over 40 years ago, I guess. The reason they were doing this to me, Paul, right from the get-go, they needed me, a human spirit, to help people cross. So that's where he stopped. And I've got loads more to this. And this guy's so interesting. There it is. I've said it. Phew. You're number 4 in the world that I've ever said these words to. So obviously, let's have a look. 304. That's coincidence. 304 in chat. So 318th world, we've said these words too, and there's more on that. If you want me to speak with Mark more and he's willing to share more of that, then I will do. Because I found that fascinating, and don't forget, I know a little bit more about it now, and we've kind of just got, I see Clifftop Pete's in. We've just got the tip of the iceberg. Let's have a look. A few questions here. Let's have a look. These lights started off out at sea, then near the cliffs, now flying right by you. What could come next? Full communication. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I didn't at first then when you were saying that. Yeah, we've had the lights out at sea. We've had them above us. We've had them in the fields with us. I don't know what could come next. I mean, I guess expect the unexpected. We never expected a light to actually be around us. The speed that it comes is startling. And do you know, Friday night, as I've probably said 3 times now, but when it went that way, I can't work out how they saw it come down. So that's fascinating. And in itself, I don't know. Before we look at some more questions, the guy who takes photographs of the aurora, a great guy who often finds himself on Cliff Lane, usually in very early hours when we're leaving. Let's just have a drink of this. Paul filmed something unusual, which he sent me. I hadn't had a chance to download it. From Flamborough Head, I think Saturday night, and a pulsing light, which he couldn't work out what was causing it. He said he'd got his back to the lighthouse. So anybody that wanted to say it's lighthouse, but bear in mind, lighthouse, it's an high elevation, so it's not going to be that. But he said, I'd got my back to the lighthouse. He said, and all that there was between me and the North Sea were just gauze, barbed wire fences and fields. And there's a pulsing light, which he's taken a bit of film off. But what interested me, I remember Gemma coming with her partner earlier this year. I think it was April. And we went up onto cliff tops, and there were a light traveling along cliff tops. Now, everybody who's up there knows that we see a lot of aircraft activity, a great deal of aircraft activity. And occasionally you'll see helicopters. You can hear helicopters if they're close by. But this light, it descended and were pulsing. And I remember showing Gemma it through Psionics camera because you could hardly see it, but through Psionics camera, it was flaring up. I don't think I showed it Darren. But I got about 6 or 7 minutes of this. And it's similar to what Paul filmed on Saturday night. Now, I've just literally, before I came on here, probably 15, 20 minutes before, just sort of rendered off about, 30 seconds, a minute of it. And with a few frame grabs, because I'm going to make a short out of this, because I'd not really looked at the footage. And it's interesting. We thought the light was on the cliff top. So I'm going to play that now. And apologies if we never get to the questions about this, because you know how slow I am with these questions. So let's just do this. Listen, just have a look. It's nothing special as regards made into some kind of film. It's literally just chopped and rendered off. So audio is going to be rubbish.
Can you see that, Gemma? Yeah.
How weird is that?
Well, that's very bright.
Shut up.
Here, I'll just hold that. I've got it round my neck, but just hold that. Here.
So, we're going to stills now. So let's just remove that. Those stills are from further on in the footage because it gets much brighter, and you can see it just above the headland, just above. It stays in that position. It's totally silent, and it's pulsing this. What would you call it? Turquoisey blue color. Really interesting. And obviously, we've said before that the psionics does not in many instances, does not give you the true color. You look at these orange lights out at sea and the white. Well, that's giving you quite a true representation. And we've got lights from, let's just put it back on again, people.
I think you can see it with naked
the
eye.
red light is a boat.
But I'm just watching
horizon.
that cloud and
when we've got that bar of light in the sky that's projecting up, or that's projecting
it's almost
down,
as though there's something projecting from below. But I can't tell. It's not moving, is it? Can you see that, Gemma? Yeah,
How weird is that?
but that's very bright.
Sure, Darren.
Here, I'll just hold that. I've got it round my neck, but just hold that. Here.
That's still, you can just see it off the ground a little bit anyway, but so it's not the smoking gun of ufology, but it's interesting. Definitely not an helicopter, definitely not an aircraft. I'm not sure how many minutes I filmed it for, but I think between 4 and 6 minutes, because I'd not looked at that footage since April. I'd like a lot of stuff, I just load it onto an hard drive and kind of forget about it. And that's what I'd done. It was just that Paul sent me that bit of footage today. And I thought, I've seen something similar to that. It looks remarkably similar. So I found that out. So I don't know what you guys think. You might just think it's nothing, but I found that one interesting. Let's just go down a little bit. Oh, and one other thing. I'll tell you when it were. And so somebody in chat, Pete, might remember date it. Well, when Carl Dan came, because Carl filmed it as well from a cottage on Lighthouse Road, because he was staying in an Airbnb. And the next day, Carl told me he'd filmed an unusual bar of light in the sky. So he couldn't film the object that were on the headland, because obviously I think he were a little bit lower or a little bit higher. It didn't work, but he managed to film that bar of light. So I've got that footage as well, which is interesting. Let's just go down a bit. Let's have a look. Happy birthday from Mel Suter. Thanks, Mel. That's Rick Allen. Let's have a look. Have you tried using AI to find answers to what you're encountering at the cliffs? No, Rick. No, I haven't. And I think AI is a fascinating tool, isn't it? Let's face it. It's brilliant, but do you think AI cheats a little bit sometimes, and puts things in that aren't really, I don't know, genuine or real? I don't know. I mean, we don't know what we're dealing with anyway. So should we put faith in AI? Do you think? I don't know. If we put faith in something that, if we don't know what it is, if it's not conventional, then do you think AI would? Maybe I'm being stupid. Maybe we should do exactly what you said, Rick. I suppose anything's worth a go. AI, I mean, it's a brilliant tool, isn't it? I wonder if AI is the vessel for unexplained phenomena. Can you imagine if this unknown other has been waiting for us to reach this certain stage in our evolutionary process, and AI is that stage, and now it can, I don't know, use it to, enhance its own cause. Because I've said many times, even the human form, we're all becoming kit form, aren't we? Knees, hips, contact lenses, hearing aids. Can you imagine in 20 years' time, 50 years' time, projecting that forward, and we'll probably have artificial limbs that we can actually operate things with. I know there's early attempts of that now, and it's almost Frankenstein-like, the actual mechanics of it, that as in the movements, but there'll be some fluidity to it, I'm sure. And I'm sure that'll be the method to go. And people shaking their heads and saying, no, it'll never happen. But look at mobile phones. Look at where we are with them now. You can speak to somebody at the other side of the world instantly. So anyway, what do I know? Let's have a look. I hope there's another question. I can't think of what else to say. Let's have a look. I can. Right. Off license. I was in Dolby Forest today. You mentioned that you was told about 2 breeding pairs of cats. Yeah. When was this roughly, and where? Thanks, Paul. Well, one of them, off license, was in Howard Dale, and obviously I'm not going to, and that's as close as I'll say. And most of that's come from Chris Wright, who spends a lot of time up there. He works in area as well, and yeah, definitely one of the pairs was in Harwood Dale. And we've had, whilst making Wolflands, we spoke to many people up there, and you'll have heard me talk about those 2 lady farmers who were uptended to their sheep in some remote fields, and she's just stood there, I don't know, after doing whatever she's done, and just looked into the gauze probably 6 feet away, and sees a pair of paws stuck out from under the gauze, and that were a big black cat. So, but I do think, though, 134, that the chances of seeing these things are very slim, aren't they? Let's face it. We ended up around Barnes Cliff and around that area up in North Yorkshire, myself and Chris, and it nearly killed me going up and around those hillsides and everything in all that thick grass and bracken. But my point is, when we got up there, we found an area well away from fields, and there were lots and lots of remains of sheep, skulls, partially eaten carcasses, all sorts of stages of consumption, should we say. And so they'd been taken into there by something. And when you see almost a full sheep in the woodland, you realize a fox hadn't taken it in. You could imagine parts of it, but so something has been taken in. And when you get to Garraby Hill, so we'll jump away from the North Yorkshire forests here, and there's a little wood at side of, as you're going down Garraby Hill, if you know Garraby Hill on the way to York, on the right hand side there's some woodland. I was told about deer carcasses being in trees in that strip of woodland. So that's interesting in itself. I don't know who owns that estate or how extensive that woodland is, but that seems to be the traits of a cat to me, anyway. With myself and Chris, and I put them on here a bit over years. People's reports of big black cats, beige cats, and in comments you often get people going, "What a load of rubbish! There's no cats here. There's nothing for them to eat." It's teeming with wildlife. I mean, just one run home from the cliff tops at Bempton, from there to when you get onto the main road at Bridlington, it's just alive with rabbits. And honestly, there's just so much wildlife that's on the verges and running about, and deer. So I don't think there's any shortage of food, to be honest. Let's have a look. Could it be a numbers station like the Lincolnshire Poacher? I don't know. I'd be lying if I said I did. I really don't know, Lorna. But I found it fascinating, and there's more to come on that one. And I'm not going to try and get the man on to speak, because he won't. I know he won't. After speaking with him today, I didn't even ask, because I think we're fortunate that he shared that with us. And that's when you know you're onto something. Somebody who's told you something quite personal and truthful to them. There's something about analog radio equipment and its compatibility with picking up certain frequencies in between frequencies. Yeah, I do believe it. I even looked on various things like eBay and what have you to see if there were any old Bakelite radios. I thought, it's fascinating, this. When I spoke to this man today, to Mark, I said, do you think it would have happened if anybody else would have had that radio? I guess we never know, will we? But and we won't. But I have a feeling he was the key ingredient that came together with that radio. And it makes you wonder how that radio came there when nobody in his family remembers anybody ever owning it. It's fascinating. Let's have a look. Let's go. I don't know whether this is a question. Sounds a tad similar to the vertical plane. Luby Lisa. Okay, Lisa. And you might want to come on here one day and educate us on some of this. Let's have a look. Oh, we got Rick again. Let's have a look. The radio, your phone, the light at the cliffs, the common denominator for all of these happenings is electromagnetic energy. I ought to have known that would be coming up with Rick, but he's right in a way. Yeah, you're right. And do you know Mark, who comes up onto cliff tops, Rick, and everybody else is as level as anybody you're ever going to meet. And he weren't there that night. He was there during the first, what we've called the visitation, but he weren't there on Friday. But he'll analyze everything, literally everything, and he's blown away by that. It's really special. And I were up there on Wednesday. You see, this is the volume of things that we see. And I realized, we see satellites, loads of satellites, and we see satellites that flare up, and we know that they're satellites. Jack, former military, he'll tell us what's in the air, what military aircraft are in the air, and what other aircraft. And that's not his job, but that's what he does. And he's good at ironing all these things out. In the past, we've looked at distant lights, and without Jack, we're just looking at a light in the sky. He can tell you what aircraft it is and everything. He's really clued up with that. But on Wednesday night, I was up there with the guys, and Mark was there. Me and Mark are looking out to sea. And it lasted about 3 or 4 seconds. And going in a straight line out at sea, a silver oblong, literally, no aircraft, nothing. We just saw it. Not a shooting star. We see loads of them. A silver oblong. And Mark's words were, he says, that were a bit special, that, weren't it? And it really was. You know, it were a really interesting light that we saw. And I wish we'd have all seen it. And we've got these cameras firing out in all directions. We didn't pick it up. You know, you've got to be in right place, right time, haven't you? Let's face it. So let's just have a look. John Paul Body, good to see you, John. Still got to do that one, you know, John. I know that. Right, Tim. I recommend Mark look up the incidents known as the vertical plane. Well, Lisa's just been alluding to that. So thanks, Tim. Lasted over a year in the 80s, and I've been documenting in a book, TVP, similar goings on AIV, different environment. Brilliant. That's interesting. It'd be something I'm interested in as well. And you know, I haven't got the information in front of me, and I've spoke about it occasionally. We had a guy in doing what do they call? What's it called? EVP, and the voice box, and getting some kind of communication. I think he passed away in 1970s. Called Raymond Cass, and he was from Bridlington, and he were an hearing aid specialist and used to make hearing aids, and he started in this, and he claimed to have got voices. I think he was one of the pioneers in this, you know. So that might be a live stream or a short that we could put out there if people are interested in this, or like Tim or Lisa, you've got more information and more knowledge on this than me. Let's get in touch and just kick this one about and see whether we can help Mark a little bit, because obviously it's puzzled Mark all his life. Let's have a look. All right. Oh, Lisa again. Let's have a go. I've seen something really unusual today, a square shape within the sun. I got a picture. I'm not going to say obvious, Lisa, if you're taking pictures at sun, but have you got any lens flare or anything like that? I'm not saying you have. I get lots of people sending me pictures, and they've got a little green orb in picture. And if you look, you can't quite see sun, but you know it's really bright in top left or right at picture, and it's lens flare. I'm not saying that's what you've got, but I don't know. There we go. Let's have a look. Blue shift. There we go. Probably done with questions, have we, guys? If we have, I'm scrolling down. Right, let's have a look here. Shining up or shining down, whatever it is, it's very powerful. I wonder if the beam was seen above. If the beam seen above was some kind of atmospheric lens effect. Very odd. Yeah, we couldn't work the beam out. And if I'm being truthful, user, it was the beam that we were drawn to before the object appeared. We'd seen the light on the cliff tops or above the ground, obviously in the air, and that disappeared. But then we saw the beam, and that's all that Carl Dan managed to film. So he never saw what we eventually saw on the cliff tops. You know, so all Carl filmed was the beam, which I sent me the film. So when I put this together, I'll put Carl's film in with it as well. And then, as I say, quite by chance, Paul, who was the guy who gets these incredible pictures of the Northern Lights, filmed something similar on Saturday night. So is it a natural occurring thing? I don't know. It's difficult to say, isn't it? But what Carl filmed ruled out it being much further away. You know, because we're looking at that light. You guys have seen it now. That looks like it's either just above the cliff tops or some distance back. But it can't be that far back, because Carl was on Lighthouse Road and in Flamborough, and he filmed that vertical light, but he couldn't see the light on the ground. If he'd have looked further down, you know, you're looking towards Bridlington and Hull, and he couldn't see that light. So it's got to have been in between the two, which is interesting in itself. But yeah, the light, whether it was shining up or down, I don't know. But like you said, it's powerful. That's just, it's Carl in. I know he isn't. Right, I wonder. Let's have a look here. Scorch Mist. I wonder if the chap was chosen by the phenomena because as a young boy, he was so vulnerable. being poor but curious. Great account. It does make you wonder why anybody would be chosen, but it's a strange combination that this radio, as I was first reading that, this, I bet you guys were thinking, well, he's just picking up voices in between stations. But I can assure you there's even more to this. But, you get towards the last 2 pages of it and you realize that whatever it was, were communicating with him and preparing him in such a way that if he laid in bed, the same voice that spoke to him via the radio or through the radio was speaking to him in his mind and giving him instructions on what to do. It's fascinating, isn't it? And it just shows just what's out there. And incidentally, we talk about this, and Saturday night. Came in Saturday night. I went for a nighttime walk around Danes Dyke. I weren't late. I like to sit and have a beer Saturday night, if I'm being truthful. So we're in at 9:30, wandering around Danes Dyke. Nothing happened. I heard the sound like a foot stamping down twice, but it could have been a deer. They often got a stamp and before they bolt away, but nothing happened. When I got home, I don't know, I sat down, watching a bit of TV, wife's on sofa, little dog sat at side of her. This is the truth, this. And dog's very close to her. And I looked at Mary's hand and I could see a blue light. And I said, what's that you've got in your hand? Have you got a little blue light? And she said, no. So I stood up because I didn't believe her. I said, open your hand, there was nothing there. So there's no blue light. Just a little postage-sized round blue light. Got a sapphire blue light. I kept looking because I was sure she'd got a torch. And then as I'm looking, it appeared on dog. And it were there. And this little dog, it's got an habit of sitting up like a meerkat. It just sits like that. And it decided it wanted some of that because he's always doing it. And he sat up. He'd not seen this blue light then, but he'd sat up. And then suddenly he looked down. We never saw anything, by the way. And the dog kind of looked forward as though he were looking at something. And then the blue light appeared 2 more times. Only me. Mary didn't see it. There was only me that saw it. And it was a really, really rich, not dark blue, but sapphire type blue, which is dark, but not that blue that you sort of distinguish it, almost like black. It was a bright blue light, dark blue light, sapphire. So that were 4 times that I saw it. Once on her hand, once on dog, but always around the 2 of them. And I was expecting. I was sat there watching for ages, and nothing else happened. So that's the first. Apart from these strange telephone conversations or voices and things that are happening with phone, that's the first thing that's happened of any note in property for a long time. And I know team that's going up onto cliff tops, and probably next Sunday, if Linny wants to, and if Pete wants to, and Jeremy, we all ought to just come on and share some of this, what's happening, because it's not just me. I'm sat here talking about it and talking about other people's experiences, and there's nothing like the witness to speak about what they're seeing and experiencing. And these incidents on their own don't sound spectacular, but as a collective, there's loads and loads happening. And we're not in fantasy land, we're not imagining this. Nobody imagined, them 7 people didn't imagine that light that interacted with us. Or the 6, well, Linny's corrected me and said 5. The 5 people, I know there were 7 there. I forgot Jack had kind of left the group. But 5 of us saw it on Friday night. 5 people, it takes a lot to contain something that's not true. Let's put it like that. And if you're being dishonest, then 7 people, there's 7 people that can trip themselves up. All 7 people saw it. So perhaps as a collective, we ought to get on and talk about these things. That's all I'm saying. And let's have a look. Right, let's have a look here. Yeah, thought that to do with a bit AI, a bit like the Terminator. I know where you're going with that, Lisa, like we talked about as being in kit form, as in, false knees, hips, everything else. It's going to get like that in future, isn't it? Seriously going to get like that. It's going to aid mankind. And when you look at pictures of alien greys and different types of alleged beings, and those things that I saw in childhood, they were so sort of amoeba-ish and thin, wasted, that you could probably feel like you could just push them over. But if you've come so far, with intelligence and tech that can do jobs for you, you would atrophy, wouldn't you? Unless you start unless the populace that did nothing but exercise, you would lose the need to have strong muscles. You wouldn't need to shovel coal. You wouldn't need to, I don't know, whatever you did, because machines would do it for you. So that over hundreds, if not thousands of years, the shape of the human would become different, perhaps. Let's have a go. Let's have a look. Pointer. Paul, didn't you speak to an elderly lady who had an encounter with an alien as ward to stay away from AI? Yeah, I speak to that many people, and I've got a vague memory of that one. Yeah, I did, and there's also the one with the elderly lady who claimed that she'd seen the angel, and I got to speak to this beautiful lady quite a few times. She was very ill, and she wanted to share this with me. And she won't be with us now, but she did, and she did a drawing of what she'd seen and everything. And this angel appeared in a bedroom when her son had a terrible, horrific accident, and it was touch and go whether he lived. And I know we're jumping away from that point, but she woke up in the night, and he was stood in a bedroom with his back to her, huge shoulders, all sort of glowing white in a robe, and hair that were cut like a page boy, she said. And he spoke to her, and I'm not sure if he spoke to her in her mind or audibly, but he said, "I can't turn and look at you, because if you saw me in my full form, full on, the vision of me would kill you." But he appeared just to tell her that her son was going to be okay. Isn't that brilliant? Is that the power of prayer? I don't know. If it is, I'll start to pray, But interesting, isn't it? Right, let's have a go. So many of us on here seem to have astral travel events. Mine were also during a similar time frame. Wish I could still astral travel. It was very, very strange, but liberating at the same time. I'm kind of jealous. It's happened to me once, and people have heard me speak about it, so I'm not going to do it, but it's happened once. So people like yourself, user, that have managed to do that is incredible. And I know other people I've spoken to who use the live stream, and one lady I speak to probably 2 or 3 times a week from here, and she said very similar to you. I wish I could still do it. I used to do it, but I can't anymore. I wonder why that is. You would think that once you'd mastered it, that it would be something that you could just, I don't mean do at will, but you could slip into that state a lot easier. It's fascinating. Right. Oh, let's have a look. Paul, what do you know about the UFO in the chip shop window in Scarborough? All right. Plinkett, are you from Scarborough? That's interesting. This is a live stream all on its own, or it's at least half an hour all on its own. People will have heard me talk about the Silpho saucer. So back on the North Yorkshire moors, Silpho Moor, which is close to Broxer Forest and all these places that we talk about, Harwood Dale. Back in 1957, November the 7th, I think. I might be wrong, but I think it was November the 7th, 1957. This small UFO allegedly came down and landed on Silpho Moor. There were no occupants in it. My feeling is it were only 22 inch in circumference, and people say it was a hoax. And I'm not going to put my hand up and say it weren't, because chances are it was. And we'll get to your chip shop in a moment. Where I find it interesting, because it's been explained away. I'm trying to think. He made newspapers only a few years ago. I can't think who he was. He was a professor, weren't he, from Sheffield Hallam University. And I've spoke to him. I just can't think of his name. It'll come to me. And he obviously explained it away as a hoax, because he'd been doing a talk at some university, and a curator had brought a box that said UFO pieces in it. It didn't say where they were from, but he believed that these were part of what's called the Silpho saucer. And so it's allegedly been explained away. They were from some I don't know, some pilot or who'd collected them and then donated stuff to the museum many years ago. David Clark, that's who it was, Dr. David Clark. And so I'm not saying he's wrong. I think the chances are that this was a hoax. But what I find fascinating and what didn't, this is why we should always lay the story out, all the story, not just the parts that fit your narrative because you want it to be a hoax, all of the story. So it's said that it was from a copper, it had been made from a copper, the top and bottom of a copper water cylinder. So that's plausible. But what nobody says is, and I looked at the paperwork, is the actual copper was tested by the British Non-Ferrous Metals Association back in the day. And it was an extremely high purity of copper, nothing like what they'd use in building trade or anything. So that kind of rules that out. Inside this the Silfo saucer, I think were 4 books. And when we say books, they were copper-plated books that were laminated, and and imagine tissue paper laminated 4 times. I think there were 4 books. Somebody might correct me next week if I'm wrong. But there were 4 sheets for every page, and nobody knew how they'd put those sheets together because each sheet was wafer thin, and they were joined. You know, I presume under a microscope they've looked and see there's 4 sheets, and on those sheets there was lots of hieroglyphs, hundreds, if not thousands. I don't know. I don't know if it ran into 1,000, but definitely hundreds of different symbols and letters. I don't know, people were there to decipher, allegedly. So was it a hoax? Probably, yeah. Was it made from a copper cylinder? I very much doubt it, due to the testing of the metal and the high purity. And these laminated sheets in this book, or books that were inside it, I found fascinating. But to jump back to Pinklet's question, allegedly, because when it was found, and it ended up on display in a chip shop window in Scarborough. You're spot on. And I tried to trace this, you know, only a few years ago. I went into all sorts of ins and outs of it because one of the people writing about it, one of the people involved, I believe, was a solicitor. And I got in touch with a solicitor's office where I discovered where this solicitor had worked. How sad am I? Obviously, a lot of water's gone under the bridge, and you know, lots of years have passed, but I contacted solicitor to see if they'd got anybody within living memory who knew this man. And I didn't get any further than that. But yeah, that's what I was trying to do. Because I thought to myself, just like Pinklet's just said, was it in a chip shop window in Scarborough? That still exists. I believe that's still probably potentially in the area. And do I think it's some like crashed Roswell UFO? No, I don't, to be honest with you. But I'd love to find it. Can you imagine it on there? Now, it'd be brilliant to find it, wouldn't it? To discover this after all those years, even if parts of it had been cut up. So I don't know. Sorry about rambling on about that one, but I think that question came up in live stream the other week, and I just didn't have time to ask it, or we'd not got to it. So let's have a look. If you believe that they're sent in capitals, though, Rick. I don't know whether it's a question. If you believe that the shadow people, cryptids, and UFOs are supernatural, then stay away from AI, because it will tell you that you're wrong, which is right. Is that a riddle, Rick? That you're wrong, which is right? I don't know, but yeah. And let's have a look. So then, I take it from that, Rick, that do you believe AI is actually consciously giving us which is probably a crazy thing to say, AI, because it's not conscious, but is it deliberately giving us the wrong information? There's a question we're probably not going to get to today. Let's have a look. 40. And as we've come to learn, Bempton and Eastern North Yorkshire is probably the most active location in the UK. Where's the next best location you've learned of during your research? And reports sent to you, Paul. Do you know, I don't know, 40. And I get reports from all over UK. I get some really good reports. I know people talk about Cannock Chase, don't they, as being a multi-phenomena area. But I get reports from all over. If you know, tonight, if we'd have had time, I was going to do this one from the Malvern Hills. I've spoke about it once before, probably a few years ago. 1977, five teenagers basically in a Mini, and they were involved in an abduction event. But I know that's not what you're asking, but I don't know. I don't know. I think there's places all over the UK, and I think that those places, I mean, some of them might be, most active place in UK might be somewhere that never gets any footfall. So we wouldn't know, would we? You know, I walked along cliff tops in dark a few weeks ago, just talking to myself to GoPro as I do. I must sound like a lunatic if anybody's watching, but I actually said that for the most part, this location, as in Bempton, Flamborough and Speeton, has slipped under the radar for many, many years until I became vocal about it. And then I started looking in archives, you know, the local papers and everything, and extensively going through archives. I'm talking about spending days, not just half an hour looking at papers, literally getting on a microfilm machine and spending hours and hours. Staff at Bridlington Library, I were probably... I were there as many hours as they were there. I went through every microfilm archive that they'd got, looking at the papers and going through them meticulously, looking for unexplained, and that's where we highlighted a lot of it. I say in the truth proof books, in these books, people think that things are happening up there all the time. They're not. But what you've got in that book is a collection of first-hand accounts. Some of them go back to the 50s. So it's, when I talk about it, it sounds like things are happening. Where I've talked about that visitation Friday night. We go weeks. You know, the last thing that happened was that spectacular thing, which I keep talking about. That was probably 3 weeks ago. There's been very little in between times. And that happened Friday. There might be nothing till after Christmas. But as a collection, and in between times, you get people who are visiting area or people who are curious now, and they're emailing me, telling me about what they've seen. So I should imagine anybody reading it and listening to me talk about it probably think that it's just, I don't know, it's just alive. It's like an ant's nest of paranormal activity. It isn't, you know. But it's active as a collective. I think it's probably one of the most active places, not just in UK, I would say in world. I mean, I don't know if Patrick Daniel's in chat, and we'll not get to Patrick's tonight, but I mean, I'd love to get Patrick on to describe what he saw whilst he was with me on the cliff tops. And I had some kind of, I don't know what happened, just some kind of brain malfunction. I'm not joking, because I don't know whether I went into a trance. I don't know what happened. Grandson were with us as well. They both heard me say I'd just seen two people. This story's not for tonight, really, but these two people didn't exist. And then Patrick saw something. He says, "Now I just looked at him." It was really strange. We need. I was kind of teasing you here, guys, so we need to get Patrick on. See if I can get him on to cover that, because I were there. I can talk about it, but I love it when other people were there and can back those words up. Just like we've said earlier tonight, as a collective, there's lots of things to talk about. Maybe we could try and get 3 or 4 people on who regularly get up onto cliffs with me, and we'll have an hour and a half talking about these things. The most recent ones. I mean, Jack were really kind other night, and I keep saying we all need notebooks, and you buy a notebook, and I end up putting all sorts in it, and it never makes any sense when I've done it. You know, this is the place where I do most of my writing and documentation. But Jack's bought everybody a waterproof notebook, which is really kind of him. So, Jack, we're going to use them, or at least I am anyway. So there we go. Let's just let's have a look. Somebody, Steve Collin, Paul, Woods at Garraby Hill is owned by Earl of Halifax and his son, Lord Irwin, who lives at Garraby Hall. Fabulous. Thanks, Steve. Or Stefan. I always call him Steve. And I know that this fella is going to be coming on live streaming next few weeks, because he's had a bit of an experience again in Staxton Wold recently, and he's only just touched on it, so I'm not going to go into detail. Next week, potentially, we're going to have a guy on talking about a sighting, I would say, of a Bigfoot, or he describes it as looking like a Neanderthal man back in 1994, and on a main road. And it's a fascinating story. I've heard it. Myself and Les went and met with this guy and listened to him share this account with us and go through it in the exact location. So, yeah, it is fascinating. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with him. It might not be next week, but it'll be next few weeks. Let's have a look. Let's just keep going down here. Right, blue shift. I'm not sure what you're referring to. It visible to your eyes, Paul? Yeah, but what, Rob? Are we talking about the light that we filmed, or I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'm sorry for sounding vague, mate, because obviously it does relate to something, and there'll be people in chat saying, "Well, I know what he's on about," but apologies, I don't. Let's just go down here a little moment. Let's have a look. What, Paul? What do you know? Oh, we've done this one. Yeah, and I assure you, I've just gone down. It must have just come up again, unless I'm losing the plot here. Let's have a look about something to do with hoaxes here. Let's have a look. Are there still issues with hoaxes and UFO reports locally? You used to hear about them a few years ago. Not so much these days. I suppose there's always going to be that, Shadow. You're always going to get people that want it so bad, want the phenomena to, I don't know, they want to prove their case or want to talk about something so bad that they're willing to hoax it. And it's a shame, really, because you're only as good as what you're reporting, I suppose. And if let's say us as a team on those cliff tops, I don't know, created a hoax, then that's all we'd ever be known for. We had a doubt. It's not worth doing. And that's what I was talking about earlier. The 7 people 3 weeks ago saw this. 7 chances of somebody to trip up if they were lying. I'm quite confident I know what I saw, and I'll take everybody along with me on that one because it was the real deal. I've never seen out like that. But yeah, as regards hoaxes, I'm sure it. Yeah, I think there's been hoaxes in last decade at least as regards alleged aliens that have been found, and I'm not sure about these crystal skulls and lots of other things. And the little flying saucer. The little copper flying saucer, is it man-made? I think potentially it is. I just dispute the fact that the researchers haven't looked into it to say, we can't quite work out how these pages were laminated together. These wafer thin copper sheets. We can't quite work out why this is an incredible high purity of copper. And that sort of makes it better for me when that's done. Allegedly, it were a red light that they saw, a glowing red light on the moor, and it came down. And there's lots of sort of flags go up because you think to yourself, we go up there, and when I walk up there, you don't see many people. So in November, in the night, who would be up there? So that sort of throws it a little bit. You think, why? Do you know what I mean? What is it? To me, we are looking at a hoax. It's just the whys. Why would somebody go to that detail and that trouble to create it? And it made all papers, the national papers during the day. I mean, we're going back to 70 years ago, aren't we? So let's just have a look here. Miracles. That's what we've got to pray for. Hi, miracles. Hi, Paul. Is this a hotspot area you live for this activity and lights? Thanks. I think it is. I think you would call it an area certainly where a lot of unusual activity take place, without a doubt. And it speaks for itself. And what I like about it, Miracles, is the fact that although I'm sat here talking about it and putting these stories out, they're from other people. And if I were a good writer and I thought, well, I'll make this up tonight and I'll tell these guys this, in most instances, I can call on people who've given me stories, who've given me the accounts. There's a lady called Kathy who contacted me, along with her husband, but I've only spoke to Kathy probably a month ago, and they were in their car driving from Bridlington to Scarborough. And in a field on the left-hand side of the road, as they're driving along, they saw something that a creature, an animal they can't explain. So it weren't quite dark. We'd got his headlights on, but it weren't dark. We're looking on this field, and there's this animal with huge shoulders propelling itself like a gorilla would do, like front limbs first. She said it had a snout, a muzzle. It's literally, if you do a Google Earth, it's literally 2 miles from Hummonby. And very close to Flixton, where we've got these reports of the Flixton werewolf. I'm not asking people to subscribe to the idea that these things exist, but it's very close to all that. It's fascinating. And where am I going with this? Yeah, that report. So if I'd just written that if I'd just written it up, you know, eventually somebody might think, bloody hell, he's saying a lot of stuff in, but where is not where's the proof? Because we still haven't got the proof. But where's the proof of the people that are speaking to him? Well, I can tell you now that when I got that email through, and when I spoke to that lady, I got a phone number, and I've rang that lady, and I've asked her if I can record her, and she's allowed me to, give me full permission, and I'll be turning that into a short, running down the road, talking about it as I'm driving. So it don't make it proof. It don't make it the truth of what they're saying, although I've no reason to believe that they're telling me an untruth. But jumped away from what you said, didn't we, really? But yeah, it's a hot spot for unexplained phenomena. Let's just, you can see that I'd shoot off in all sorts of directions here, don't I? Let's have a look. We've still got 300 people here, so we're going to close it down in a short while, people. All right. Oh yeah, Paul, the alien head behind you. Have you got the hands around the wrong? Probably. Yeah, probably. Let's have a look. I don't know. No, I haven't. Look. No. If you look at that, I don't know. Who knows? Even if they've got hands, do you know what I mean? Or hands like that. Let's just put it this. This is our Noah's idea. It was my birthday today, as I've said, and that was one of my presents. So I thought I have to put it up, else he'll have face on with me. So that's my grandson. Let's have a look. And who wants Nathaniel Gillis back on here? Because I'm thinking that, you know, it's about time we'll give him a shout. And right, the astral travel isn't just me. Here we've done it again. That's crazy. We've done that one. Right. Let's have a look. Yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier. Apparently, the Silpho saucer books and metal fragments turned up at the British Museum a few years ago. Now, I've tried there, and user, this is where they turned up, because as far as I'm aware, Dr. Clark were doing a lecture there, and one of the curators brought a box that said flying saucer parts or bits. It didn't say Silpho saucer. That's what I'm getting at. It never said that. So I'm not saying it wasn't that, but once again, kind of the narrative's been placed that it's got to be that. So it didn't say that. Do you see? So that's where they assumed they'd come. I actually have a friend who works in museums, works in places like that, who contacted the curator for me because I wanted to ask some questions. So I do try and do my homework and due diligence. And this guy actually works within museums, recording things. So we got the name of the curator who'd presented these bits, and he asked him if he would tell me or speak to me. Nothing. Never heard a thing. You know, I don't think there's any conspiracy there, by the way. I just never heard a thing. Right. It's a tool, Paul. If you don't run your research through it, then at the very least, you are missing a different way of looking at it. You don't have to accept it. Good point, Rick. Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with that. Talking about AI, at least he's not calling me a tool. So let's have a look. Do you get any strangeness when the Bobster or only... Do you get any strangeness when with the Bobster or only when you're alone with others? Yeah, it's a good question. But that dog definitely saw something in the house the other day, without a doubt. I'd just seen that blue light. I thought she'd got something blue, like a blue light in her hand. Then I saw it on the dog, and then he just does his little sitting up pose. But he looked down. And then he put his head forward, and he just didn't do that. He actually looked as though he could see something. We couldn't. But it's as funny as out, you know, because he'll come into the bedroom in the morning. We know this is not with strangeness, but it is strange. He'll come into the bedroom in the morning because he knows what time I get up, or roughly, and I'll wake up and I'll look, and he jumped on bed, and he sat on bed in that position, looking at me. I don't know. He's as funny as out. He really is funny. I just come the other day with my birthday present. And I were talking about dogs. She says, "It's your pride and joy, innit?" I think I like him better than my daughters. Yeah, Shouldn't say that, should I? Well, I just have. I'm only kidding. So here we go. You are quite right. Sorry. Yes, the sulfur saucer bits were located in the Science Museum. It's not a bad, mate, honestly, because you've labelled the museums. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember where they were. I just remember reading about it, and I just thought, I know the box that were presented, and I'm sorry for being boring with people here about the sulfur saucer, but I know it just said flying saucer parts. It never said sulfur saucer, so that kind of annoys me when people just say that's what it is. Chances are it was, but they didn't say that. And you know, academia and men of science like to be accurate about things. So be accurate. It's not forced to be that. So there we go. Let's have a look. Right. AI is a tool that draws from a database, the internet, which ultimately blacklists certain information. So what you'll get out of it is ultimately still compromised. Black world tech probs different. Thank you. And I'm going to wind it down in a minute, guys. I don't think I'll be doing a live stream on Thursday. We've just got so much to do at the moment. Not just with this, we're just with family member that it's making it difficult. But I will keep doing the Sundays. Try and step the Sundays up to at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending how it goes. And I love these question-based ones. It's great, and it's your stream. That's what it's about. What's your plans for the next few truth proofs, Paul? Great to hear all the questions tonight. Well, Sunday, fingers crossed, we're talking to Steve, the guy who 1994 saw the. I said Bigfoot, but nobody's better placed than witness. He said it looked like a Neanderthal man, huge figure on the road that stuck with him all these years. And he said that's an interesting story. There's Steve Collin. There's loads and loads of people. I'd like to get Nathaniel Gillis back on. I don't know what you guys thought of Reed Summers the other night. I thought he was fascinating. I know there's a lot of people thought, he talked fast and it was hard to digest what Reed was saying, but he's articulate. He's on. If you want critical thinking about the mechanics of the UAP/UFO subject, I don't think there's anybody better placed to talk about it than that man, to be honest with you. I enjoyed listening to him. Let's have a look. Sam Shelley. Oh, I'll just put that up because I like Sam. I like you all, by the way, but Sam were in Wolflands. He's the guy that was in Skinning Grove, and we're all well, thanks, Sam. In the woods in Skinning Grove as a young boy playing hide and seek. Skinning Grove's right up in top of North Yorkshire, but all on that coastline. Once again, Sam's better placed to tell this story than me, but he's there hiding and looks up, and there's this thing sat there, just like a huge silverback gorilla, but it's not a gorilla, and it's sat there in the darkness. And I like the analogy that Sam used when this thing's looking at him. He says, I'm staring at this thing, and it just cocked its head like a curious dog would and looked at him, and he did a runner and ran back to where all the young kids of the village were all sort of, they'd got the den and they're hiding, not their place where they'd go, in old disused railway carriage. And they were all screaming as he ran back, because they claimed something had been on roof at railway carriage. So interesting, a great story. Sam's a great guy, but a great story as well. A really brilliant part that he gave us for the documentary. And I'll just do that before I close it down. Wolflands, hard copies. If you do buy an hard copy of Wolflands, it'll be in post tomorrow. Somebody bought one, a couple on last week, and post office was shut, so they'll be going Monday. There's some electrical problem. And the books, same thing. Truthproof.uk if you want the Truthproof books, and if you want them on Amazon, they're available via Kindle, the Kindle download. And if you want to watch Wolflands, Amazon Prime, that's where you'll find that. So just a little, and please, if you're new to the channel, or you're not new to the channel but you've never done it, just press that like and subscribe, will you? It just gives us a bit of support, and I enjoy the questions. I enjoy this interaction, but it's nice to get a little bit of interaction back from you guys. We've got some brilliant people that just give us support. It's brilliant. Given you've experienced the amazing light on the platform twice, are you planning to tweak some of your camera setup inwards? Yeah, definitely. We started it at 40, straight after that, you know, the very next time that we were up there, and we've slowly pulled away from it and started facing them in different directions. You know, incidentally, the first time it happened a few weeks ago, I put the Psionics camera on, not to film anything, just to film the audio, just to record the audio of the reaction from everybody. I wanted to get that. And we sort of talked about it for about 19 minutes, and then I turned it off and it did it again. So, you know, you hear lots of people saying, well, if you've got cameras on, it's not going to present. So you have that worry. But what I'd like to do is actually show you guys something, you know? Wouldn't it be brilliant to say, look, it's happened and we've actually caught it on film? You know, that would be quite something. So, yeah, probably would plan on that. Somebody else says, so I must be wrong. But Chrissy Phillips, thanks, Chrissy. Paul, the hands on your alien needs swapping over. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Do they really? I don't know. If they do, they do. And incidentally, brilliant account from this lady sent to me from Chrissy Phillips, sent to me last year, weren't it? 2024. And I've recontacted Chrissy the last few days about various things, and I want to know a little bit more about this account. So it'll be one that I'll be sharing with you guys. So thanks for that, Chrissy. Appreciated. Right. Yeah. Looking forward to the account from the Malverns, Paul. Mark Rhodes. Great guy. Mark's been on Cliff Tops with us, with his sister Jane, and George came up as well, Jane's partner. Yeah. Right. Dave K, all the best. I'd love to do that one now, but I'll save it while next week. And we'll have a go at that if we don't have well, I think we will be getting Steve on. So let's just have a quick look. Wow, thank you very much, Simon. That birthday drink. Yep, I'll take you up on that, my friend. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Nice one, Paul. Happy birthday. Good luck finding the sulfur saucer. I think I've more chance of finding a real UFO, but it just makes me think, user. It just makes me think when it definitely were in a chip shop window on display. You imagine in 1950s that being there. It tells you it can't have been anything exotic, because some government would have spirited it away, wouldn't they? It'd hardly get hung in a chip shop window, but it's still a fascinating story. Let's have a look here. Our dog used to see something in the house before it died. We could feel it and get a glimpses, sometimes smell something. When she died, it left. Okay, Jan, thank you. It's interesting, isn't it? You know, what the animals perceive. Do you think it's perception? We think that they're seeing something, and I don't know, but do you think they are? Do you think they're actually perceiving it and drawn to that area? You see them go and stare at a wall, sort of thing, and cats do it as well. And it's quite unnerving because you know that we think they're seeing something. I wonder if they're actually sensing something more than seeing it. Who can say? You know, I don't know. Well, let's just have a quick look. Wow, I'm blown away by that, Mark. Thank you. That's really kind of you, mate. These hands, let's have a look. These hands have got people. These are alien hands. They're the right way around as they are. I thought they were, but I don't know. See what you've done, Noah. You've caused some debate with your hands tonight. Well, I have, because. Right. Okay. So we've come to end at comments anyway, people. I really appreciate you staying with us tonight, and we've just about held 300 people in chat. And remember, it's your stream, not mine. I'm just a mouthpiece that's putting this out there. If you want to come on and share some experience with the rest of you guys out there, because I know that there's people listening in this chat that have got things far more interesting than what I've talked about tonight, or equally as interesting, should we put it that road. I'd love to hear about it. I mean, I'm looking at names in here, and I can see people that have sent me things and sent me information. You know, Chrissy, who I reconnected with a few days ago. There's John Paul Body, who comes in the chat. His story is just incredible. It's incredible. But I don't know if John had come on and speak. I mean, I'm putting him on spot now, but obviously you can just turn it off. So all these and many more people have got things to share, and your stories are what makes this channel and other channels, I suppose, interesting, because people want to hear stories about not just the strange and unusual for the sake of it, to compare with what they've seen, they've experienced. The Bakelite radio. I know that Mark asked me to talk about that because he really hopes somebody might come forward and said, I've had a similar experience, or I know what you're talking about, and give him not advice, but it's almost a comfort knowing that you're not on your own with this, you know. And he openly admitted four people he'd only ever told about this, and carried that for 40 years. And he's just, 52 years old now, and he's carried that for 40 years. And it's a long time to carry something that you find really perplexing and frustrating, because I don't mean every night and every hour a day you think about these things, but it is frustrating because there are times when it comes into your mind, anybody's experience, and you turn it over and turn it over. I know I do, and I can't get no further, and you just can't. Carl Dan's in as well. Thanks, Carl. Top show again. Yeah, thank you very much. And Carl, if you've only just come in, I was talking about that footage you sent me of the beam of light. You may have been in when I was talking about it, to the shaft of light that were in the sky. What you didn't see was the object that were on the ground or just above the ground, because obviously we're a couple of miles apart. But it helps validate, and it tells anybody who's watching this little film that I'm going to put together that it weren't that far away from the cliff tops, you know. But anyway, enough of me. I'm going to leave you guys now. Have a great week. Like I said, I'm probably not going to be with you on Thursday, but we'll definitely do Sunday, and we'll keep Sundays running. And hopefully it'd be a lot easier to try and get the guests, or even if I get a guest for an hour and then do this for an hour. Come on, it's your show. Give us a format, what you're wanting, and we'll try and conform, and we'll try and get it there. Lee, Alison, Gemma, they'll be moderating most of the time. Thanks for the support, guys. And we'll see you, all being well, Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, wow.
Saw it twice, because I was like, oh my god.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up,
Yeah.
like a headlight, but there was nobody there.
Oh.